You're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
4 seconds left. In front. Happy moment. The Tampa Bay Lightning have won the first Stanley Cup. And the Tampa Bay Lightning have won the Stanley Cup. Lightning strikes twice. The Tampa Bay Lightning win their second straight Stanley Cup.
Hello everybody and welcome back to RBLR Lightning. As always, my name is Jake Ricker. Alongside me is my good friend and co-host Matt Gannon. Matt, it's another beautiful day. We are that much closer to hockey season. How you doing today?
I'm doing all right, Jake. I'm again, I can only exhaust this line so many times that I'm bored, just waiting for hockey, waiting for football, of course, as well. But we're getting closer. We're again kind of short on news, but again, we can kind of smell it in the air. Hockey season's just around the corner, and I can't wait.
Well, here's how we know it's really close too, because they just posted on Instagram, or I think somebody posted on Facebook actually, that the crew is getting ready to prepare the ice. The ice is going down tomorrow at Amalie. So exciting times. They're getting ready to set up the ice. Someone posted a picture of, they put a little piece of paper on the glass that said "Do not enter." Ice is being made. So, but it's always exciting though when the ice starts to go down for hockey teams. They start posting those pictures because it really is a beautiful sight to see.
Mm-hmm. No, have you ever seen how they do the rinks, how they paint them up, everything, all the lines, all the logos, they're all hand painted. You think that they're vinyl stickers or something? No, they're all hand painted. I know Anaheim, they got their ice sheet all ready to go. So. It's nice to see that the bolts are right behind them.
It's very satisfying to watch too. If you watch one of those time lapses, and it's impressive how perfect they can get those lines, which is
seriously
quite unbelievable. Excuse me. So that'll be exciting. But also, this is going to be the Lightning's 30th season. I think we mentioned that before, but I think it's kind of getting lost in the shuffle a little bit. And part of me is wondering if the Lightning are going to do a 30th anniversary logo. I think we talked about this before, but with the ice going down tomorrow, as of this recording, on September 6th, I have to wonder if they're going to release a 30th anniversary logo, if that's going to be on the ice at all. Teams have done a 30th anniversary logo in the past, so it would not be out of the ordinary for the Lightning to do something like that. But I hope they do personally, Matt. The Lightning have announced that they have a season kickoff on October 1st. So I'm not sure what that's going to entail as well. Maybe they'll release a logo kind of then. But I think it'll be really cool for the Lightning to come out with a 30th anniversary logo.
That would be cool. I remember the 25th anniversary logo. That was pretty nice. And I'm pretty sure San Jose, I'm not sure if they had it on the ice or on their jerseys, but I know that they did pay homage to their 30th season in the NHL just this past year in some way or another. So that'd be nice.
I mean, it would probably be something simple. They'd probably just do, the 3 and then the 0 would be the Lightning logo. I would imagine is what they would do. But, it's always fun to have different unique logos for your for these milestones. So, but time will only tell, and we'll probably find out if anything tomorrow, because I would imagine they would put it on the ice. So maybe we'll get some new news tomorrow, but we'll have to wait and see if that happens. Other news, or quote unquote news, because we're not in that official news cycle yet. Yeah, right. Vasilevsky got a new helmet that the NHL showed off earlier on their Instagram. I believe the Lightning retweeted it on Twitter as well. Matt, I don't know if you got a chance to see the helmet, but what are your thoughts on Vasy's new bucket?
I did get a chance to see it. Unfortunately, they only have the one picture of it that Vasy posted on his story, and the artist reposted. So I'd like to see, every angle of it so I could truly analyze it. But something that the Lightning goaltenders have underrated, at least since Ben Bishop, they've had some great masks, Vasilevsky especially as well. But again, it's hard to beat Ben Bishop's neon blue mask, the glow in the dark one. But
yeah,
I'd say they've got an underrated, mask pipeline.
You're right that they only posted the one angle, so we haven't seen the full. I would imagine they're going to post something at some point showing off all the different, because usually all these helmets have these really cool meanings behind them, and like goalies will put something on it, like Elliott's got a giant moose on the back of his because he's nicknamed the Moose. So I'm sure Vasy's got some things on there as well that I'm sure they'll go into at some point. But you mentioned Ben Bishop's helmet, so I wanted to ask you, what is your favorite helmet that Vasilevsky has ever had, if you have one?
Oh man.
There's been so many, I know.
There has been a couple. It's got to be something where I forget was it a lion on it or some sort of big cat for sure, but it was extremely prominent on the helmet, but it wasn't overbearing by any means, and he really leaned into the big cat nickname from him. So I would hope on this new helmet that there's some sort of big cat on it as well.
You would imagine there would be, but it's hard to tell from that one angle.
But I really can't give you a all-time favorite Vasilevsky mask, but I can give you an all-time favorite Lightning mask. Of course, is that Ben Bishop neon mask.
Yeah, that one was cool. Vasy actually had a color changing one where it was like a dark gray. I think he wore it for when they had the black uniforms, but if you poured water over top of it, it turned into like this, had this hint of like a dark blue to it, I believe it was. It's hidden somewhere on Instagram. You can go back and find it if you guys wanted to check it out. But I think it's one of the cooler ones that he's had. And of course, we'd love to hear from you guys. Let us know in the comments or tag us on social media at RBLR Sports. What is your favorite Andrei Vasilevsky mask that he's worn? Actually, Matt, did you know he used to have an all white mask that he wore in the preseason one time?
No, I didn't. I can't quite remember.
Yes, there's a picture that I'm looking at now. If you go online and just Google Andrei Vasilevsky all white mask, you can find it. I believe he wore it just once in the preseason, and I think it was when he was getting a new helmet. But it's an all white mask, and it actually looks pretty cool with the white uniform and the white pads. And actually Ben Bishop also had it wasn't all white, but a mostly white mask that he wore, and this one kind of had blue lightning bolts all over it. It's a pretty cool looking mask as well. Although his pads in this picture don't look great. They almost look kind of a cream color white, if that makes sense. It's not like a pure white. So I think it throws it off a little bit, but there's been some cool white masks in Lightning history. Most goalies go with the home colors, but I think white mask, especially with those away uniforms, can actually look pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. If I can find the picture of that all white mask, oh, I see it right here. Wow, that one is actually pretty neat.
It's a pure all white mask, but it's got a unique feel to it because not many goalies wear a white mask. But it's cool to see what these goalies come up with and their unique designs every year. I think it's one underrated part of hockey is these goalies show off their personality with these goalie masks. So fun to see. We'll see. Hopefully, get a better look at Vasy's new mask in the coming weeks here as well from the Lightning. But also speaking of Andrei Vasilevsky, the NHL a couple of days ago, during the offseason, they like to release their rankings list that always inevitably sets up or makes a bunch of people upset because their favorite player is not ranked the highest. But they did their goalie rankings just yesterday, I believe it was, and Andrei Vasilevsky was ranked as the number one goaltender, which shouldn't come as a surprise to most, but glad to see he's still recognized even by the NHL as the number one goaltender.
Yeah, it's pretty much just people who hate the Lightning and Rangers fans are the only ones that think Shesterkin, he should be number one, blah, 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 which he is a great goaltender. He had a spectacular season, but do it again for 4 straight seasons, and then he'll be in the conversation. Until then,
Andrei Vasilevsky.
Yeah, absolutely. Win one Stanley Cup, win a Conn Smythe, and we'll talk. It was great that Shesterkin, he got heart votes and whatever, but this was 1 year. I think this is only his second or third year in the NHL, but it was he's 1
young.
Year. Vasilevsky, well, he's not young. I guess we figured out that he's only a year younger than Vasy. Oh, that's
right. Yeah, he's young in the sense of he hasn't played too many NHL seasons, but he is older. I remember we talked about that in the one episode.
Correct. Yeah. So again, if he can just find the same consistency that Vasilevsky has, he'll be in the conversation. Until then, no, it is quite objectively Vasilevsky.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think most people would agree with that. Like you said, it's mostly people who don't like the Lightning and Rangers fans. But I'm sure there's even some Rangers fans that agree with it. And Shesterkin was ranked number 2 on that list by the NHL, by the way, which, I agree with. Shesterkin is obviously a fantastic goaltender, but there's no doubt that Vasilevsky earns that number 1 spot. And he is a huge part of the reason the Lightning are in contention every single year, no matter what happens to the Lightning roster, and why they'll be in contention once again this year, because he is just not human sometimes. The things he does as goaltender, it is always a treat to watch him. But the next thing I wanted to talk about here, Matt, is the 32 Thoughts podcast had both Pierre-Edouard Bellemare and Victor Hedman on their podcast as well. Bellemare, I apologize. I always butcher his last name.
I always say Bellemare. Is it Bellemare?
I think I don't know. It's a French last name, so I'm probably saying it wrong as an American. Yeah, right. But PEB is how I usually just abbreviate it. But PEB and Victor Hedman were both on the 32 Thoughts podcast. Highly recommend going to check out and listen to the interview for yourself. But I took some notes when I was listening to it. There were a couple of things that I wanted to bring up and talk about because they said some really cool things. So starting off with PEB, when he was talking with the guys, he was saying that, something that's great about the Lightning. They were asking him about how, a lot of people say don't count out the Lightning, don't bet against them, because no matter what, they always have a chance to come back, like they did against the Rangers when they were down 2-0. And he was talking about how it's not just the locker room that always believes, because you'll hear that from guys all the time saying, yeah, everybody buys into it, we're all believe we can come back. But he was saying even the staff that's in that locker room, the guys who are not playing on the ice, just have this confidence and nobody panics in there, which I thought was really cool to hear, because I think that shows the culture that the Lightning have created in John Cooper's staff, and that it's not just the players, but it's every single person in there in that organization that has a confidence, this go get 'em attitude that they can come back and they can be the best of the best.
Well, on 32 Thoughts, this was a couple of months ago. I think it was during the Rangers series. Jeff Merrick said something, and I think it was when we were down 2-0. Jeff Merrick said something really interesting. He said, it could be, and I'm pretty sure I've also may have said it on this show before, but I'll say it again just for redundancy. He said that the game could be 10-0 with 15 seconds left in the game, and there would still be something in the back of my head saying, well, maybe they could come back and tie this game, but it's 10-0 with 15 seconds left. But there's just this sort of aura about this team that they've, proved to everybody over the last 5 years that they can get it done. There's no reason, there's no team that they can't beat. There's, again, no reason that they have no ability to come back. And we've seen some pretty spectacular comebacks from this team in that time span. They've created a culture on and off the ice, as we're learning, with arena staff and trainers and whoever else that just has this buy-in mentality and just knows never count them out. Even people that have zero effect on the game, again, trainers, equipment managers, they all have that same attitude of it's not over until it's over.
Yeah, and it's really great to see that the Lightning have really become this model franchise. And as we talked about in one of our later episodes, that they're, even though they're in Florida, the Southern team that nobody thought could succeed, they've turned into this powerhouse, really. And speaking of that as well, to build on that, the PEB also talked about how the Lightning were not satisfied even after winning back-to-back Stanley Cups, and that specifically what was brought up to both Victor Hedman and PEB, which we'll get into a little bit later when we talk about Hedman's comments, but there was a play where a lot of guys said they got a lot of respect for some of the Lightning guys, because it was right at the end, I think, when Colorado won it, and Hedman was yelling at a linesman about an icing call, I think it was, and basically the players were saying that they were impressed that this team who just won two back-to-back Stanley Cups was still extremely upset and frustrated after losing, this third one. Because people would think, even for most teams, you'd be like, you know what, we won two back-to-back Stanley Cups, can't be mad, which that was the mentality. But just the fact that they showed that much passion, even when they were going for their third straight, I think says a lot about this team and how much they care year in and year out.
Yeah, they're just ultimate competitors. Would you say it was Victor Hedman yelling about it, or just somebody on the bench?
I would believe it was Victor Hedman, yeah, because they later asked Victor Hedman about it, and he basically was talking about how they want to win it for guys like PEB who haven't won the cup before, so that's their big motivation to it, and it doesn't make it any easier, even when you've won two back to back.
Man, with Belmar's case, that's kind of sour. We all kind of, I feel bad now, but everybody kind of jokes about Corey Perry losing 3 straight Stanley Cup Finals, but it also, that one stings for sure. But in Belmar's case, he left the team that, he left the Avalanche, signed with the Lightning in free agency, and got beat in the finals by his former team. That's pretty tough.
Right. Yeah, that's never great. But hey, let's get him and Corey Perry his Stanley Cup this next year. We got to make sure, if we get to the Stanley Cup Finals and we lose again, I think Corey Perry's going to have to retire, because he might be the ultimate curse for somebody if he loses 4 straight. There's no way, right?
Yeah. Don't even take a front office job or anything at that point, Corey.
No, you're not allowed within 15 feet of the arena.
Man, I love Perry too. Like, I know he already got his Stanley Cup in 2007 with the Ducks, but he was he was really young back then, and to get so close 3 other times, it's just really got to sting. Nobody would want to have a 1-3 record of Stanley Cup Finals, but I'd love to see him get another one, and of course Belmar, and of course the new guys, Hagel and Nick Paul as well.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
not necessarily emotionally attached to the new guys, like Myers and Ian Cole. I'm not attached to them, but it'd be cool for them as well. So actually,
I'm sure we'll become attached to them halfway through the season too.
Yeah, of course. But I know Cole actually has won a Stanley Cup, so.
That's right. He has earlier. I can't remember who was it
Pittsburgh.
with you. Pittsburgh. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he was on both teams, but I know he got at least one.
I think he was just on the one, if I remember correctly, but
Okay.
I could be wrong on that. Don't quote me there. But it is good to hear that the Lightning are absolutely motivated year in and year out, and they don't have that. A lot of people always talk about a cup hangover, which does feel like it happens for some teams, but it seems like that is not an issue for the Lightning ever. Well, obviously, when they make 3 straight Stanley Cup final appearances, it's not an issue, but just that passion. And remember, Kucherov was really angry in those last couple of seconds as well. He kind of like slammed the door. Same kind of, they didn't bring that up in the podcast, but I think it was that same kind of thing, is that these guys, they want to win every single year that they can. So they have passion. And me and you were talking about this before we started recording, in that even the fan base, you would think you'd be satisfied after winning 2, but we hate seeing those Colorado Avalanche players going around with the Stanley Cup on their day with the cup, because even as fans, we're ready for another one.
It hurts for sure. I can only imagine I'm going to leave Montreal out of this because they've had enough success in their entire lifetime. But let's say Dallas, they've only won the one Stanley Cup in 99. And if you're a hardcore Dallas fan and, you can't really rest your head on the fact that, oh, well, we won the last 2 cups. I got to see them lift Lord Stanley twice. That's amazing. No, it's, all for naught. So that I can't put myself in their shoes right there, because I have that ability to say, like, yeah, we won the last 2 cups. I got to see my team parading the Stanley Cup around my hometown. Like, that's something pretty cool. But it's unfortunate they couldn't get it done this year. I've at least got that vice. If I was a Dallas fan, I've got nothing. I just got to mope about it. So
Right. Well, and I think every fan will understand this when it finally happens for their team. It's that, it's kind of that idea of once you taste power, you just want more of it.
Yeah.
Once you win that first Stanley Cup, you're like, "Ooh, this was fun. Let's do it again."
I got to ask you something.
Yeah, go for it.
So going back to what I was saying, feeling bad for Dallas fans. Was there any team over this 3-year period, all these Stanley Cup final runs, was there a team that you felt genuinely bad for after we beat them?
No. That we beat specifically?
Yes.
Yeah, no. Toronto drives me crazy. Obviously with the way their fans are sometimes, and then I don't like Florida at all because
Nope.
they're our big little brother rival. And their fans also can get really cocky sometimes. Obviously this is all with fun and games within the sport, but and then Rangers fans too. They were so confident after winning those first 2 games and those chants that they had. And so, no, I did not feel bad at all for any of those guys, even the Islanders.
Oh, definitely not the Islanders.
year
Definitely
before.
neither the New York teams at all.
Right.
Both of those were.
Did you feel bad for anybody?
The Maple Leafs? I really did. And I'm not a Maple Leafs hater. I'm not like everybody else that just likes to just give them hell. Ha ha. 1967. It is funny. It is like how do you
Right.
lose? Like what is it now? 6 or 7 straight game
Something
sevens?
ridiculous.
Something crazy like that. And I felt bad for them in 2021 when they choked that 3-1 series lead, but it's like it's way funnier to me that they choked that lead to the worst team in the playoffs, air quote, at the time. Like you choked it to your you choked it to one of your oldest rivals in the league, who should not have even been in that situation. And then this year is like, what they were. To me, they, out of the teams that we beat, they were definitely the hardest. Of course, they took us the farthest, but it was
Right.
every time somebody got the puck, it was just terrifying. Somebody's gonna just speed past a defender and just tuck it in. Like they played fast, and it was the most nervous I had been in quite some time about any series really. I'm omitting the finals against the Avs because that was. But
Right.
after seeing the clock tick down 5-4 3-2-1, I was of course cheering, but at the same time I was like I just feel so bad for Leafs Nation, like, because again we won game 6 in overtime and there were some great chances. I don't know if you remember in game 6 it was Hagel to point for the overtime winner. It was kind of a scramble play, net crashing type of goal. But just before that, I can't remember who the defender that got the puck to Hagel was, but Austin Matthews had pretty much a clear breakaway if he got the puck, but he ended up catching an edge and falling down. So
That's
one of our
right.
defensemen just picks up the puck, Hagel, point, goal. Now we got game 7. If Austin Matthews had that breakaway, as much faith as I have in Andrei Vasilevsky,
That's a tough matchup.
That most likely is a goal. I mean,
Right.
An overtime goal in Tampa too.
That would have been devastating.
It would have been brutal. I would hate to be the team that lifts the Leafs curse. And that's what I was most terrified about. Again, I'm upset we lost in the finals, but it's like, hey, we made it to the finals and won the last 2. If we were the team that let the Leafs get out of the first round, we'd still be, hearing about it nonstop, for the next 5 years.
And you're right. You bring up a good point in saying that, obviously the Leafs haven't won in what feels like forever. So that makes you feel a little bit bad for them just because, they haven't got to experience what we've been so fortunate to experience twice. And I will say this, I do feel bad for Steve Dangle, who is my all-time favorite Leafs fan. Probably one of the few that I actually like. He's a great guy. I love a lot of his takes. I'll watch his videos pretty consistently as well. So I do feel bad for someone like him. who has just gone through hell on earth, basically, that, and just constantly has to see his team lose. So I do feel bad for him.
Especially because he was doing the watch a Leafs game with Steve Dangle as well, and had to be,
right.
He was streaming to like 60,000 people at the time, and had to remain composed. He's a strong man, I'll tell you that.
And it's funny because he knows this too, and a lot of YouTubers will understand this, but it's the videos where you freak out and are the angriest that get the most views. So it's difficult in that sense. Like, you're like, oh man, if I give a big reaction, I'm gonna get a lot of views on YouTube, but it's at my expense because my team lost again.
Well, he's pretty self-aware of that now. He calls himself the yelly, screamy Leafs guy. And when those Leafs, embarrassing losses happen, it's he knows that he's going to get a lot of views because he does all the LFR videos, like we lost to a Zamboni driver. That's
his most viewed video.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's comedy gold for me, but at the same time,
right. Well, I love it too. He always makes a joke in those videos now where the Leafs lose big. He's like, when he starts the video, he usually say, "Welcome back to everybody who only watches when the Leafs lose," which I think is great that he embraces that. Not to get off on a tangent there, but there are teams that I will sometimes feel bad for, maybe like in the other conference. I can't think of any examples off the top of my head, but for whatever reason, I'm just a big Grinch, I guess, that I don't feel bad for a lot of the teams that we beat in the. Well, it's mostly because we've just become big rivals with everybody. Like, we usually Boston, Florida, the Islanders. I don't like any of those teams. You know, like, I mean, the Penguins, maybe I would feel a little bit. I'm trying to think of teams that we would play. They've had
enough success. Nobody feels bad for the Lightning losing. Nobody feels bad for the Penguins losing.
Right,
anymore.
That's true. They've had a lot of it. Come on, now I gotta think of a team that I would feel bad for if we beat. But
I also kind of felt bad for the Hurricanes in 2021 because, like, they were, I believe that's a good one. Yeah,
they
may have been the President's Trophy winners, or at least top of the conference, I want to say, and they just because Colorado won the President's Trophy that year. And they won one game, and I think it was an overtime or just a 1-goal game. And then it was all the games were pretty close, but it was a decisive series, in the Lightning's favor. And Carolina is probably like my second favorite team in the East. So of course I felt a little bad, but at the same time, hey, closer to Stanley. So
right. And you know what it is for me? It's because it's our conference and the conference that the Lightning are in. I'm a diehard fan. So when it comes to, even if I kind of like a team, like, let's say, I don't know, Philly, I don't have a problem with Philly, even though they stink right now, but or Carolina is probably a better example now, like I might be rooting for them, but when it comes time and they play the Lightning, I don't like them at all, obviously, because I'm a diehard fan. And again, that's why I was saying, like, in the West, like, I like the Minnesota Wild a lot. I can't wait for the Kraken to start getting good. Like, those teams I feel bad for. But when it comes to teams playing the Lightning, any of my liking for you goes out the window, if there is any to begin with. So, but a good question though. Good question. That went off on a nice little.
Yeah, was that long enough for you?
Well, that was great. Couple more things though I want to talk about on Victor Hedman's side of things on this 32 Thoughts podcast, and then we'll get ready to wrap up here in just a couple of moments. Which, by the way, if you guys haven't heard us talk about this before, if you're looking for some new merch coming up for this next season, don't forget to head over to the RBLR shop as well. Use code BOLTS at checkout for 10% off your order. They've got some awesome t-shirts, not just Lightning ones too. They've got Bucks, Rays, Rowdies, all lots of cool stuff. So be sure to head over there and check that out as well. But so Victor Hedman was on after PEB, and they asked him about some of the same things. But one of the big things that I wanted to talk about that he mentioned was the Ryan McDonagh trade, because they asked him if the players were frustrated with that. Because if you remember, Matt, I think we talked about this. There was news that came out that said the Lightning didn't handle that situation very well. And it was a bad job by JBB. We kind of debunked that whole thing. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. So people gave him a hard time for it. So they asked Hedman about it, and his answer was interesting because it really did sound like that didn't go over well, I guess is the way to put it. You're going to have to go listen to the podcast to hear it for yourself. But I kind of got this feeling that I think it was more of that people really loved Ryan McDonough on that team. He was a huge part of the Lightning defensive core and how good he was at shot blocking and being a leader in that locker room, that players really hated seeing him go. I think that's what it was too. It wasn't that the Lightning didn't handle it well. It was just, one of those, it really sucks to see this guy have to go. But Hedman did also say, he understands the NHL is a business. And at the end of the day, that front office has to make those tough decisions, which nobody in the end likes. But it was interesting to me to see how much those guys really loved Ryan McDonough and were really bummed to see him go.
Yeah, I know. McDonough, he made his mark the moment he stepped foot on the team. Like he was a captain in New York. I think he, if not always, most of the time wore an A on his chest. He was, leader material. And I remember when Pat Maroon came in for the 2020 season, the first person he really hit it off with was Ryan McDonough. Took him in as, one of his own, even though I believe Maroon's older, if not the same age or something like that. But, they just really hit it off, became great friends. They did everything together. He was just not only a great player on the ice, but just a huge part of the locker room. Again, he was an alternate captain, de facto captain, just, let's say if Stammer wasn't there, he was a huge voice in the locker room. Even if he was there, he was, a huge integral part of the locker room. So I can 100% guarantee that, yeah, a lot of players and staff, I'm sure, were upset with the handling of it. Of course, everybody knows it is a business. There is a hard cap. We had to make adjustments, re-signing Nick Paul and bringing in other free agents to fill the void that, the players had left when they signed other deals. So I get it, but it is kind of
that was a tough loss.
The cap hit was for sure high, but at the same time, it's like nobody ever really pointed fingers at McDonough. He wasn't ever a scapegoat. He was always kind of the guy that kept things grounded. So I've never had an issue with that $6 million cap or 6.25, whatever it was. But again, I understand. I get it. So
could you imagine this Lightning team if they got to do what older teams did before there was a cap and being imagine if we still had Yanni Gord, Blake Coleman, Barclay Goodrow. Do you know how fun that would be? I mean, man, if only we could do that,
Yeah, seriously. I mean, yeah, I know there's a lot of people that complain about the salary cap for better or for worse. People they want a soft cap with a luxury tax. And I mean, the salary cap is just very complicated in and of itself. I only know the surface level details of it, and it gets deep. That's why teams, hire capologists. It's an invented word.
Right.
And, the Lightning, I'd argue that they're the best team at it, especially over the last couple of seasons as well, when the cap has gone nowhere. And they've still, managed to remain competitive and win a couple of those cups as well in a world where, you've got no extra money to spend. You are not only at the cap, but you're 18 million over, really,
right.
8 million over, but who's counting? It still counts. Find me the rule that they broke. They didn't. So,
our enemies, that's who's counting.
Yeah, exactly. Well, count to 18 million.
Yeah, we'll be counting our Stanley Cup, right? Stanley Cup race. But you're right though. It is, the Lightning have done a great job at they've still kept their core intact for the most part and have been competitive every year despite the cap. And it's definitely one of the worst parts. And it's funny you mentioned the NHL cap being complicated, which it is, but I feel like the NHL's is probably one of the more simpler ones compared to other leagues. Cause like basketball, you got like the super maxes and the max contracts, and then there's like the luxury cap, and there's every league's got its very unique things that make it complicated.
Yeah. Despite the kind of sour taste that the McDonough trade left in everybody's mouth, though, I am excited to see how Phil Myers performs. I'm excited to see.
Yes.
I hope he could be a really good reclamation project. The Lightning are great at doing that. Looking back with Zach Bogosian, who's still on the team, and Kevin Shattenkirk, who really, really revived his career. I still think Myers has potential to become a decent defenseman. Again, they couldn't get it going in Nashville, but hello, Eureka. Yeah, they couldn't really get him going to Nashville, even though that is a defensive factory. I think that the Lightning can, maybe not strike gold, not get another McDonough, but make the trade look a little less one-sided.
Yeah, that makes sense. But the last thing I want to talk about here before we get ready to wrap things up, and I forgot to mention this when we were talking about PEB on that 32 Thoughts podcast, is he was talking about Nikita Kucherov, because they asked him about the Lightning have a ton of talent. What is it like for him being on the team to watch some of that talent? He specifically brought up Nikita Kucherov and how it seems like Kucherov is really, it's funny. He's a very reserved guy. You don't see a lot of emotion from him, but I feel like he's one of the most helpful guys on the team. Because I remember years back, he worked with Palat a bunch in trying to improve his game. And then PEB mentioned that he talked to Kucherov and Kucherov was helping him improve his game. So it's really interesting to hear that Kucherov seems like a very, mentor type of person, even though you probably don't get that vibe from him just watching him from the TV set. But I bring him up because he mentioned that it's not Kucherov's shot or his playmaking ability. Well, kind of his playmaking, but it's not his shot that impresses him the most. It's his passing. He says Kucherov has this wicked backhander of a pass that he can put on somebody's stick perfectly. That is just unbelievable to watch. He says that he loves highlight reel stuff, but they need to start showing off Kucherov's passes, which I thought was really cool to hear, and just this other unique side of things and showing off Kucherov's amazing playmaking ability. And he's right, because I remember when the NHL released the top 10 plays from Nikita Kucherov last season, a lot of them were passes, because Kucherov is really good at getting that puck on another player's stick.
I will die on the hill saying that currently, right now, Kucherov is the best playmaker passer in the league. I will not hear any other arguments. You can make other arguments. McDavid, Draisaitl, McKinnon, blah, 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 blah. And you know what? You can argue that they're better players, but I will die on the hill saying that Kucherov is the best passer in the league. I mean, he does. There are players that can find your stick in a sea of defensive sticks, but he does passes like you've never really seen before. I'm gonna reference back to the 2021 playoffs against the Islanders. That one shovel flip pass. He just I think it was I can't even remember who passed it to him, but it was him and Braden Point on like a 2-on-1 against the Islanders, and he just had his stick on the ice. Whoever passed it to him just kept it right there and kind of shoveled it over the defenseman's stick to Braden Point. I'm not doing a great job of describing it, but which play I'm talking about?
Yep.
And I mean, that one blew my mind. In real time, I was like, okay, that was cool. And then I see the replay of it, and it was just because I thought it was maybe accidental at first, and that's kind of what is great about Kucherov. You can make something look kind of like an accident, but it's actually a spectacular, first time type of play in the league ever. He just always has this innate ability to find, his teammates' sticks, and you'll see it rather often as well, where a lot of players are not expecting his pass. They just think it is impossible to, for him to get it to you, so they're just not expecting it, and all of a sudden, oh wait, it's like at my feet, it's on my stick.
Oh shoot, I gotta shoot.
Yeah, exactly. How did it get there? You'll see it happen rather often. Players are just shocked that it got to me. Oh shoot. So yeah, well, again, go on.
Remember when the Lightning scored that goal against the Panthers with seconds left when Ross Colton scored? I remember Colton specifically talking about it. He's like, he knew he had to be ready for a pass because he knew how good Kucherov was, and that it didn't matter the position he was in. He knew Kucherov had the ability to get him that puck, and that's why he was ready for that, I believe is what he said, if I'm not mistaken.
That's a great point. And, it also harkens to the defensive team. The Panthers, they
They fell asleep.
There were two seconds left in the game, and they didn't think, oh, he's not going to be able to get it to Colton. He's right behind the net. It's
Right.
impossible. He's on his backhand, can't even see him coming. Like, I've got to assume that was a split second thought in at least one of the defenseman's minds. I think it was Mackenzie Weegar who got burnt on that play. It's got to be especially surprising to them as well. So,
and he hasn't been healthy these last couple of years because like his best season was that 128 point season back in 2019, and he hasn't gotten super close to that again. And it's mostly been because of injuries. So hopefully he has a healthy year this year. And he can start putting, because he has the ability to put those point totals up again. So he can start getting some of that, that national recognition and maybe getting that conversation for some of those trophies again, even though that the Lightning are hurt so much by all the talent that they have that these guys can practically never win those awards. But Kucherov is an amazing player. He's definitely one of the best players in the NHL. And it's really cool to see his teammates even talking about how good he is and how special of a player he is. But Matt, anything else that we missed here before we wrap things up?
I don't really think so. Again, there's not a whole lot to do. We went on some pretty crazy tangents today anyway. So
yeah, we did.
I guess we'll save it for next show. I can't imagine there's anything going to be too groundbreaking that'll come out within the next week.
Hopefully it's the 30th anniversary logo and the reverse retro 2.0s. That's fingers crossed.
Don't hold your breath.
For something like that. Yeah, I know. Hey, listen, a kid can dream, right? But hopefully we'll get some more news soon. Even if we don't, we'll have an amazing show ready to go for you guys, and we'll start talking about some preseason projections and stuff like that as we get closer and closer to training camp in the preseason. But thank you guys so much for tuning in and listening. If you guys can take a second and give us that 5-star rating on wherever you're listening, subscribe to the podcast, like it, whatever platform you're on. It really helps us out. We really appreciate it. But thank you again, guys, for listening, and we will see you in the next one. Go Bolts.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.